you're basically going to hear a bunch of lessons from breweries. I work in marketing realm with a lot of breweries, distributors, beverage retailers, etc., and have a lot of lessons learned from them that you guys can apply in other spaces. So a little bit more about me. We'll get this slide out of the way here. Head of marketing for producer solutions, production solutions. It's basically a fancy way of saying I help the developers sing the same song that salespeople are singing the same song as the marketing team at a firm that creates technology for beverage producers, distributors, and retailers that sort of connects them all together. That's the short of it. Also owner of Garth's Brew Bar here. We just celebrated our 3-year anniversary this last month, so hell yeah. Made it through the pandemic, which is pretty cool. If it's not clear already, like I'm a pretty thorough person and I had a very extensive business plan, impressed a lot of banks when I reached out for the bank loan, and ultimately I had a handful of contingency plans in there. Pandemic was not one of them of the lengthy list I had, but here we are. Next up, I'm a freelance writer as well. That's kind of what got me started in marketing to begin with, was writing. Journalist background, started the What's on Tap beer article in the Badger Herald here at EW when I went here. Wrote for the Cap Times, another local newspaper here, for about a year on their beer beat. Now I freelance for Medicine Magazine and some other online digital publications like Up Rocks. And anybody who asks for beer-related content or beverage-related content, I had Land's End, which everybody probably has heard of Land's End or is wearing clothing from Land's End. They reached out to me and I wrote a beer article for them, which was pretty crazy too. So heavy on the content marketing side. And then I'm a certified Cicerone. So what that basically is, has everybody heard of what a sommelier is for wine? Sommelier? Cool. Cicerone is that for beer. So equal amount of intensity around studying history, research. It was really cool. I got to taste a bunch of good beer, but I also had to taste a bunch of bad beer too. So it wasn't all fun. There are off flavors and bad ways that you could produce beer that taste off to us. And I had to drink a lot of that because I had to be able to identify it without knowing that the off flavor was there already. So good beer and bad beer. And then in the past, I kind of cut my teeth in the marketing realm, working at a fully integrated agency here in town. Did that for about 8.5 years, and then recently switched over to more of an in-house thing for a company that is more in my landscape of interests, the beverage industry. So that's me. I'd love to know a little bit about who I'm talking to tonight, because as marketers, we all know the target comes first and always. So of the folks out there, who works at an agency? Raise your hand. Cool, a few. Who's a freelancer or consultant? A few more, awesome. Who would call themselves kind of a digital marketer, like very online focused, maybe email marketing? Very cool, awesome. And last question here, who's responsible for only one brand or primarily a single brand? Awesome, all right, that was a lot of hands. Is there the opposite of that? If you're working with a multitude of brands, can you raise your hand? A handful. Okay, awesome. Very cool. Well, nice to meet all you guys. Thanks for coming. I'm going to get this one out of the way. This is the top takeaways of the presentation. Most of the people save these this slide for last. I'm going to get it out of the way now. So if you're taking notes, tweeting, whatever, now's the time to jot it down. So the first takeaway you're going to get from all of this is you got to let go of originality. It's gone. It's gonna harbor your ability as a marketer. You're not gonna grow as quickly in your field as you want to be if you're holding on to and attempting to have original ideas. This one was a hard one for me to learn. When I was at the marketing firm, I thought my job was to come up with original ideas. When we would do new business pitches, I felt like it was my responsibility, not just as a way to kind of elevate myself in my role and get promoted, but I felt like it was a responsibility to my clients as well to come up with original ideas. That's what they're paying us for, right? Took a long time for me to realize that it is far better to steal ideas and refine them and make them work for your industry or your target. There's an author out there called Austin Kleon. He has a book called Steal Like an Artist. It's a fantastic short read. The point is in the title of the book, so you don't even have to get it. But if you want to, it's a pretty, again, cool read, short read. Essentially, the premise is just that. Take ideas and refine them, edit them, put a different coat of polish on them or paint on them and make it fine-tuned for your target audience. And when I share a lot of ideas throughout the night tonight, I want you to be doing that. Be thinking of, how can I take this idea that a brewery has executed or a bar has executed, and how can I make that something of my own? Because to that target, that's going to be an original idea to them, because they probably haven't seen that or thought of it in their worldview. I do notice that we have untitled art here, so probably I should have asked one more follow-up question. In the audience, who here has beer clients or is working at a beer company? Okay, one up here, one over there. Okay, very cool. So that's first one. That's your takeaway. Number one, let go of originality. Second one is people die standing still, and so do brands. This is imperative to think about, because when you are not acting on ideas, not producing content, not executing on the touch points that you've pitched, your brand is going to fall behind those who are. It's kind of like the squeaky wheel gets the grease. The brands that are loud and outgoing and proactive, they're the ones that are going to succeed over the long run. Number three is this might not work, but it's probably the most beautiful start of a sentence that I could have ever thought of in the marketing world. This is going to be the sentence that helps you grow as a marketer. It's going to help your brand grow. It's going to help your clients trust you more. And let's dissect that really quick here. So this might not work, but this might not work removes you from the equation. If I'm going to suggest an idea for a client and I start off with this might not work, if it fails, I'm kind of off the hook, kind of, from a personal identity, from a Garth standpoint. The agency that I work for might be responsible at the end and have to think things through. But again, this is about kind of building relationships, right? And those, and whether or not you have customers, clients, guests, you name it, you want to build that empathy with them and trust with them. And you could do that by saying this might not work and setting yourself up for, hey, this is an idea that we may not have tried, that might cost money, that you might not have seen before, and it's going to position you in a way that might be a little uncomfortable. So it sets that up even before you're sharing the idea. You're priming the person. But, and this is the part that most people forget to extend, they'll think of an idea and they'll just stop with this might not work. And that shuts it down. I don't know if it's going to work, so I might as well not do it anymore. When you add the but, that gives you permission to try, right? That forces you into following that sentence with how it might work or if it might work. So try to use this as often as possible. I guarantee you 90% of the ideas that I'm going to share, I bet you started with somebody in a boardroom or at an agency or on a deck or in person with a microphone in their hand saying, this might not work, but what if we ... Those are 3 takeaways. We good with them? Cool. Before we get into top 10, I've got a quick little activity for you guys. So who wants $20? Raise your hands, otherwise. Okay, cool. We're gonna make that happen. So I've got $20 here, some tape behind it. Bullshit. Who still wants $20? All right. Here's the condition of getting. Here's the condition of getting the $20. If you can reach it, that's part 1. Part 2 is you've got to place it higher than I can reach it after. So you just saw how high I could jump. So I'm going to throw it back to you now. So who would like to try and get $20? I think the tallest person in the back. This is fantastic. Let's do it. I never said you only get one attempt. You could try again. No, that's fine. I've got more tape over here. That's all right. We'll play anyway. Oh. All right, we have a genius in here. That is impressive. That is super impressive. Awesome. Thank you. Genius. Used her resources, right? Incredible. Kind of in the window. So somebody in this room had suggested use a chair, right? Cool. All right, first of all, shame on you guys. I know the room of marketers I'm speaking to. They were going to think of a chair. I had to have the ladder out. I knew what was going to happen. But you get the idea. Some of you already thought of it. Using resources outside of the realm that you're thinking of, outside of the box. And this whole presentation is about stealing ideas that are outside of the zone of life that you're living. We all work with the same colleagues in the same industry with the same companies, and we're all creating decks and researching activities that our competitors are doing. There's value in that, so not discarding that. We still have to do that. That's why our jobs are hard, because we have to do that. But what makes our jobs better, more fun, and help us grow faster and our brands grow faster is when we get all of that done as quickly as possible so we could think outside the box for our clients and ourselves. All right, let's rock on here. So number one takeaway here, surprise and delight. This is table stakes now, you guys. That's why I threw it first, because it's not like anything super surprising, right? But surprise and delight. This is, to me, is kind of like a bank saying they're trustworthy. Can you imagine a bank saying they're not trustworthy? Like, that is just table stakes. So as marketers, surprise and delight just needs to be table stakes for us. And I like to break it up into two categories because it could kind of get generic or ambiguous what we mean by surprise and delight. The first one is proactive. So a couple examples here, picking a couple from a newsletter subscriber list and gifting them something, whether it's a service that you offer, a discount, or even a gift card for, I don't know, a massage or something like that. Being proactive with the way you go about surprising and delighting might be an option, or just sliding into somebody's DMs that you found talking about you or your industry on Twitter. Proactive, right? Second one is reactive. So saying thanks to a customer who helps you develop a case study. Yeah, they're probably assuming you're going to say thank you, but what more can you do for them for their participation? That was a little bit more challenging because I feel like now any customer, at least all of my clients in the past and present, they've all expected something. So now it's about how cool can you get with that surprise and delight, or making things right after a complaint, right? Like killing people with kindness. If somebody's got an issue with your brand, how can you go above and beyond for them? So again, two ways to be proactive and reactive. I'm going to share an example of the proactive one that's not really beer related, but literally drinking a mug. It says property of buyer patriots. Thank you. So unsolicited and totally appreciated that somebody attending this event brought this. They had gone to a high school called Buyer High School. My last name, Buyer, thought it was awesome. That was proactive. There was nothing, I didn't do some call out of saying, hey, my last name is interesting. I wonder if it's out there in the world. Let me know, gift me things with my name on it. I didn't do that. That would have been more of a reactive surprise and delight, right? This is proactive. Thank you for this. This is awesome. As for a reactive example, Trogs, I'll briefly share the story so you don't have to read all the heavy copy up here if your eyes can even read it. Man and woman, Christmas. Woman loves this brewery. Man gets her a gift from the brewery. It's supposed to be 2 of these Mad Elf glasses in a box. Favorite brewery, awesome beer. It arrives, there's only one glass. There's only one glass in that box. So naturally, they don't complain, but they reach out to the brewery and say, hey, this was a gift. There were supposed to be 2 glasses. I only got 1 glass. Now, protocol, right? Ship them another glass. No big deal. Problem solved. That's not surprise and delighting. That's just business. That's just standard operation of making things right. In order for them to surprise and delight, marketing team hand wrote a letter to them, gifted them 2 glasses, so one that they could then gift to somebody else in hopes. My marketing mind is like, well, now they're going to give this glass to somebody and share the story now with them, so it's even cooler, got more legs to it, and then gave them a few other tchotchke elements to it. So a couple bottle openers that was Mad Elf based and a couple of beers as well. So they took this moment that the standard experience is a company makes things right. It's no different than if we had ordered this Topper's pizza and they had a pizza wrong. Toppers, I'm only saying this because I'm not the guy behind the Twitter handle anymore. It used to be. Standard operation would be, let me just give you a free pizza back and make things right. But if we want to surprise and delight, we got to go above and beyond for things. So really cool example of just pausing for 15 minutes and thinking of ways that you could elevate the surprise and delight experience, because the new standard is a lot higher than what it used to be. Second bullet here, marketing is everything, everything. It is the way buttons are laid out on the website. It's the signage on the door. It's how you have things designed. All of that, true. But what I want you guys to think about is the things that don't work or might not work or aren't going to be a return on investment for you. The things that are ideas that maybe get shot down. I want you to think of those as marketing as well. And I'll share a couple of examples. Odell Brewing Company, Fort Collins, Colorado. They made this winter onesie recently. I think it's pretty cool. Does everybody else think it's pretty neat, right? Questionably. Who here, if I was selling them, who here would buy one? Not a single hand. I didn't even tell you the price, too. I could have been like $10, but that price doesn't matter, right? Like, you are looking at this and you're deciding right now, would I buy this or not? But think of how many of you just nodded your head when I said, isn't this cool? The things that we do send a signal, even if it's something that might not have a return on investment. You all now have a little bit greater affinity for this Odell Brewing Company because you're thinking to yourselves, that's pretty cool that they did that, even though it's nothing that's going to return an investment for them. That's a hard thing to bring into a pitch or to convince your boss to approve funds for, right? Something that we do here at Garshberry Bar is we semi-monthly create a different kind of themed box. So we've had Valentine's themed boxes. There's always beer involved, right? Like that's what makes it cool, but we try and throw different things on there too. So this is an example of a fall festive box. 4 beers. We worked with a local artist to make this mug. She designed it and everything, and then worked with another fella, a buddy of mine out of Milwaukee, who repurposes beer cans and turns them into candles. Then some swag, right? A bottle opener, a hat, pretty fall festive. All of the beers are fall themed as well. Really cool. I think we sold like 4 of them. That's it. And it was like ridiculously priced. Like if I had sold them all, we probably would have lost some money on them. But we did it anyway because the number of people that have come into the bar, ordered a beer, looked over there and thought, that's really cool. We are now the bar that does cool things. And by association, people want to come here because they know we're a bar that does cool things. We get asked a handful of times, what sets you apart from other places? We just execute ideas. That's what sets us apart from other places. We still sell the same beer as other people. We don't beat people on prices. We beat people on ideas. When a neighborhood person comes in and says, hey, have you thought of doing X? We say, no, but we'll try it next month and see if it works because we know that's going to send a signal because everything we do, even the stuff that doesn't return an investment for us, a financial one, sends a signal. And the last example here, just trying to get as many ideas at you guys as possible, is Venture Brewing Company. They're a coffee shop, coffee roaster, and brewery out of Milwaukee. Super, super cool place. So whether or not you're a beer drinker or a coffee drinker, go check them out. They're super cool. They thought of, hey, let's work with a local guy and make some cribbage boards with our logo on it. That makes it kind of stand out. What I loved about them is that they took it a little bit further than that, and they created a cribbage tournament in which you can win these things. So that's what I thought was cool. They took an idea of something that baseline we're all thinking like, we could sell that. We could probably sell that. We have some cribbage players. They'll buy that. But they turned it into an event, really. And that sets the standard for what we perceive that brand to be. They're not just a place that makes cool stuff and tries to sell it. They're a place that makes cool stuff and makes then an event or an experience around that thing. So food for thought on this one. Everything is marketing. It's not just to design or how your website flows or anything like that. But the things that you might think are a crappy investment might not work, or you get low turnout on, and you might go back to the I don't know, your boss and be like, hey, 12 people showed up. We were hoping for 40. Let's never do that again. Probably shouldn't like think of something different, but like keep doing things. Don't let that stop you from doing things. Third, this is one of my favorites. Invest in the senses. If you want to stand out, if you want your business to stand out, think about sensory experiences. In the restaurant industry, food industry, we call it sonic seasoning. So we think through the music that's being played or the sounds that you're hearing as you're dining or drinking to make that as elevated of an experience as possible. There's no shortage of literature on the optimal music that produces the perfect in sync heartbeat that gets you all the brain stuff moving and happy and all those things. Cool. Read those. It's pretty entertaining. But you could kind of get away with just being mindful and purposeful with it. So at GBB, we do upbeat jazz. I find that to be kind of the optimal music. It's got a little bit of beat to it, so it keeps you energy like you're being productive or having an energized conversation. But it's chill enough that it doesn't like make you all wired or stressed out or exhausted when you leave. I will say the counter of that is you could have music, but then how do you control it? So most of the tables, if you feel under them, I've got felt under those tables to dampen the sound as it reverberates off the ground, because I want you guys to be able to talk to one another when you're sitting next to each other and not have to yell. Have we all been to a bar where we literally had to yell at the person across from us and the music is like kind of playing in the background? That's just poor acoustics. So there's a double-edged sword of that. Like, be mindful of what music you play or what sounds you incorporate into the space, but also be mindful of like the intensity of it and how you might be able to control it. That said, don't think that it starts and ends with sound or sight too. Think about the other sensors that we have. So Ellison Beer and Spirits, Lansing, Michigan. My wife and I took our honeymoon through Michigan, stopped at this cool brewery, talked to them, and just asked them about their space, right? Like, hey, this is really cool. I'm enjoying the beer. Tell me more about like how you guys opened and what your theme of it is. And they talked a lot about sensory experiences with this. They wanted the brewery to be as open and visible as possible, but not just so people can see the brewing process and see the tanks and see kind of behind the scenes, but they could smell it too. And what I loved about Ellison is that they were raw and real about like, if anybody's been in a brewery, it doesn't always smell amazing. There's times that it kind of smells awful. And even times that you think it's going to smell good, it doesn't smell good. And so they leaned into all of that. They wanted people who came into their brewery to have that full sensory experience and know and understand that this was a brewery. Without a doubt, they were in a brewery, not just some cool satellite tap room that a brewery has created, but the brewery itself. So they got to hear it, they got to see it, they got to smell it. And they also served their beer right out of the serving tank. So one could argue they even got to have a different tasting experience out of it as well. I threw in ska brewing out of Durango, Colorado, mainly because I just learned that ska is like a genre of music. It's basically like, I see some head nods. Awesome. It's like reggae meets punk rock, skater boy kind of tunes. It's really awesome. Good energy. It gets kind of like a little rowdy, but also happy about it. And I had no clue, and Scott Brewing is a customer of ours, and I had no clue like that was a music genre. And I saw their space, and I'm like, this is a pretty cool space. Kind of looks like a skateboard shop theme. And then I Googled it, and I was like, oh, they play ska music. Listen to that. All tied together. So that's a brand that like really leans into that sensory experience, like full force. And perhaps you might think of a way that it leans in full force for your brand as well. So be thinking like, if you've got a company name that is tied to a particular, I don't know, food or sensory experience, how can you lean into that even more? Number 4 here is do something bigger than yourself. Gone are the days, this is so 2010, of $1 to this nonprofit, or, hey, it's a benevolence night. You come here and we're going to support this charity for a night. It's good, right? Like, I'm not saying don't do those things, but we can be better than that now, mainly because people want us to be better. They want to be more involved with it. There was a time where they felt good about buying something and some of their money going to a particular kind of motivation that they supported. But this day and age, they want to be truly involved. So an example here, Mad Tree, Cincinnati, Ohio, they do wondrous work for the environment. and they do have I think it's 1%, it might even be more than that, but 1% of sales of their beers goes to some nonprofits. But they took it another level and created a whole festival, a whole day of celebration. And they didn't just do that, they also invited some of their core nonprofit partners to brew beers with them, and they released those beers solely at this ticketed event. So now as a consumer, I got to spend my money with an organization that I knew that money was going to go toward positive things, but I got to be part of a larger experience in doing so. I got to taste these beers from these different nonprofits that thought about the particular styles that they brewed. And then, of course, there's different foods and different vendors that participated in here that all have their own charitable components to them as well. So they took something that was just kind of standard and elevated it to a whole new level. And they've been doing this every year for, I think, like the last 5+ years. An example a little bit closer to home, Encompass Technologies, that's the company that I work for right now out of Fort Collins, Colorado. While there's not necessarily like a charitable nonprofit component that we lean into, like we hit all the baseline of being environmentally friendly, supporting distributors, retailers, and producers that make positive environmental impacts. All that's cool. But what I love about the company is that we care about connecting the 3-tier system by bringing producers, distributors, and retailers together. We sell products to each of them individually, and sometimes they work with one another. But at the core of it, we're trying to bring these three tiers together. And in doing so, we created a conference called the Connect Conference, where we invited all of these people from all of these tiers to come and learn from one another, workshop things together, hear the voices of those outside of their realm, but still inside of their industry, and to collaborate. And so I thought that was something really, really cool that the company did. It wasn't my idea, so this isn't me patting me on the back. They did this before I joined the company. But it just goes to show, like, if whatever your mission is, you can do something that's a little bit larger than what you're doing now. And I want you to push for that and be inspired by what these brewing companies are doing or beverage companies are doing. Number 5. Blend digital and in real life. We kind of have the pandemic to thank for pushing a lot of companies in this direction. We all tried going straight digital and had a tough time, struggled a little bit throughout it. A lot of people loved it. Still, some people hated it. So we're definitely in this position where we have to, like, if we want to please the most amount of people possible, we've got to figure out how to integrate both digital experiences with in real life experiences. And again, when we're thinking about like what's the standard and then going above it, standard is live streaming, like kind of this works out because this is an educational kind of event, right? That it makes sense to both live stream for people away and also have a social element inside. But I'll share a couple other examples that you might be able to use with your companies, your brands, your clients. First one here is Denver Beer Company. Who can guess what this little icon is? It's a 3-letter word. That's awesome. That backfired, honestly. An NFT. Who's heard of NFTs? Yeah. Map, though. God, that was good. Oh, man. So this is an NFT, which they did when it was all the craze. Everybody was producing NFTs, right? But they, in my opinion, were a smarter of the bunch that was producing NFTs because they brought a real-life experience along with it. So they only sold about a dozen of these NFTs. A cool little piece, but those who purchased one also got a bus brewery tour booked for them where they got to stop at all of these different breweries. They had beers thematic to the NFT, and they got to be the first ones to try those beers at those breweries. So they coordinated this really, really cool experience and event for the people who had purchased this NFT. So that was one way that, in the time that everybody was just producing NFTs and selling them, they brought the people that are probably local to the brewing companies a chance for them to have a greater, more in-person experience. A couple other cool tidbits here. I love like AR integration into beer cans. I think we haven't even like scratched the surface on it. I'm an idiot and didn't give you like the animated versions of this, so I'll quickly explain it, but like you guys should be able to figure it out pretty clearly. First one, put your camera up to the beer can, and you could see the guy getting electrocuted. So it's basically making a beer can label have motion to it just by pulling out your camera. Second one is Jack Daniels. This one was obviously like more money to put towards something cooler. Had an awesome AR experience that you could put your camera on the label and interact with it. So you got backstory of the distilling process, backstory of the brand, kind of a choose your own adventure experience with it. I just thought it was a great use of taking something that is kind of online and digital and bringing it to people in real life. So be thinking about ways that you can take AR and apply them to things so that people could have experiences in person. I'll give one more example because we've got somebody in the audience that works with Culver's. They did an AR experience on their cups. That was awesome. You basically got to put the camera on and made a game out of it so you could ski the slopes, jump up over cheese curds, grab spoonfuls of custard, etc. Really cool gaming experience. Obviously, again, a lot of money, but this top one, not too much money to make that experience, really. And a lot of this stuff happened, mainly the AR stuff happened pre-pandemic. So much cheaper to do it now. So if you've kind of threw that idea in the back burner, or you've resisted thinking of things in the AR realm or the NFT realm because of budget constraints, refresh it. It's a new day and age. Things are cheaper now to be able to execute this stuff. I see beer in glasses still. Does anybody need a break? Otherwise, we could keep going through. Keep going through? Awesome. Number 6, make a week-long event. I'm going to give a quick example here that I just saw today. Work and Draft is turning 5 years old. It's a brewing company on the east side here. And I saw their post, and it was just like so timely with this presentation because they're like, we're celebrating our 5th anniversary on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday and Saturday because we just have too many cool things to limit it to one day. And I'm like, thank God they're figuring it out finally. There's no reason to have a single day event anymore that is not accessible. You're going to have a greater return on your investment when you extend it longer. You could get more participation, which gets you more eyeballs, which gives even greater brand affinity for yourself. So I want us to remove the idea of like a 1-day event or even a 2-day event. How can you extend that even further? Think of Spirit Weeks and Summerfest, and if you want to go further than a week, Oktoberfest, longer than 7 days. Could you guys imagine if Oktoberfest was only 1 day? How lame that would be. But I bet you there's so many people that have beer events that are only 1 day and not taking a note out of the notebook of Oktoberfest. So Brewers Association, trying to keep in the realm of the beer industry. We've got American Crafts Beer Week. So they've literally created a week all about the thing that they are supporting. So can you start a week-long celebration for your industry if there isn't one already, or a subset of your industry if there isn't already? And something that they did that was really cool, I think it was probably pre-pandemic a few years ago, but the idea still sits in my head, is they got a bunch of brewers to participate in a video montage of them cheersing and then passing the glass, and then brewers submitted videos of themselves doing that, or staff or team members doing that, and the Brewers Association pieced that all together and made a video and shared it out on American Crafts Beer Week. So you got like 50 different brewers all cheersing in this montage video that was really, really cool as a way of saying cheers to all the people who support them. So they led the initiative of giving like the most amount of appreciation to guests and consumers as possible. So that was cool. It's not just, hey, what can I do for the people that are purchasing stuff, but what can you do for the people that are producing things as well? So it's a little tricky. Take some time to think through of what kind of week you can create for your business, because it's twofold, right? It's the business that you're marketing and their customers or clients, but also the brand or industry itself. How can you appeal to both those pies? I took that idea, minimized it, and specialized it into Monroe Street Craft Beer Week. Started this up just a couple of years ago, and I'm going to give you some tips for it because it's not all roses and daisies and rainbows and all that stuff. It's hard work to get a week-long event of things. So for us, what I did was obviously had no shortage of events here at Garth's Brew Bar, right? Different tap takeovers, different beer boxes that you could buy, different experiences like beer infusion day, and different educational elements. So awesome. That satisfied events for us. But how do you get everybody else on the street involved, right? This is what I could have done. I could have just sent an email to all the merchants on the street and said, hey, starting Monroe Street Craft Beer Week. If you guys want to participate, let me know what you want to do. That's not going to fly. Like, as good-hearted as all the merchants are on the street, they're busy and they've got their own priorities. So what I did was I emailed individually about 90% of the businesses on the street with ideas of how they might participate. So I spent the hour and a half thinking, ideating, coming up with ways that I could see their business participating in this thing. I even reached out to places that it's really hard to think of ways to integrate beer into their event. So there was a financial consultant company on the street. That's all I do, financial consulting. And there's no clients of theirs that are breweries. So like that was kind of out of the question. So I emailed them and said, hey, I will donate a bunch of beer and an hour of my time and pour free beer if you want to have kind of a social hour for all of your clients. So they still had a beer related event, extra bonus points for me for getting my name over there, but also made it incredibly easy for them. I said, here's how you could participate. Now, everybody outside of this room and outside of those listening online, they have no clue that I had to be proactive about getting folks to participate that way. They don't need to know, but that is something that is going to be a requirement. So I'm giving you the heads up now. If you think about this week-long event of yours, be thinking about how you are going to have to get other people to participate on it. The other cool idea, I'm sharing this because it didn't happen and in hopes that maybe somebody watching or listening is going to be like, hey, I'll help you out, is there's a tattoo shop on the street and I reach out to them and I'm like, yo, I'll pay for like 100 tattoos, like small little beer icons. If you could have like a set template of like 5 beer related tattoos that you'll give out to like the first 30 people. I don't know. I'll give you a few $100. You do this thing. No one needs to know I'm paying you for it. You just do it. So you still get financially compensated for your time and talent, and people get to think, how cool is it that people are getting free beer tattoos on Monroe Street? They ultimately denied. So if there's any tattoo artists that want to do a pop-up at Garth's Brew Bar this next year for Monroe Street Craft Beer Week, hit me up. But that was what you had to do. You have to brainstorm ways to get others involved with it. And it's awesome when you do that because you not only build trust and affinity with them, but it helps build the idea of what you're trying to start without it feeling selfish to the larger public who don't know that you're trying to be that proactive and get that much participation in it. So again, it's a slog, but when it's executed, man, is it brilliant. You get media showing up to it. You get people asking about what you're going to do next time. You get people pitching ideas of things that make your life easier for the next year that you do it or next month that you do it, because people respond, see other things happening, and then chime in with their 2 cents. Number 7, value the newbies and forgetful. So this one was a little bit of a hard one for me to learn as a marketer. Because I, like many others, have gotten exhausted by brands that I've worked on far sooner than the customers or guests or clients of those brands. It's a hard thing to work through. You see the logo or you see the brand voice or you see the deck and the template again and 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 again, and you feel like you need to update it and refresh it. I always get skeptical when I see a brand refresh now and ask the question, was it necessary? Are you doing this for you or are you doing this for your target? So I'll answer the question. Most of the time you're doing it for you. So stop and really consider that. If you're going through a brand refresh or a logo refresh, is it actually essential to the target or is it essential to you that you need that renewed energy and burst? So that's just one takeaway there. The second one is you've got to nurture that base, and nurture might not mean bring them through this full journey. So you saw that there's some email marketers here. I'm sure you've got some email journeys created and crafted in MailChimp and Constant Contact and whatnot. And you might just try bringing them through this journey and seeing where they fall off and how you might be able to tweak a word or a phrase or a product or a service or whatnot to kind of keep them going through. What I beg you to do, and what I've learned from other breweries that have been doing it great, and I'll share a couple of examples here, is to remember that there are new people joining in And there are people that have been with you for a while that have just forgotten about you, or maybe have forgotten about the experiences that they've had with you. And you got to remind them. So on the left here, Athletic Brewing Company, a lot of their social content is basically just reminding people that NA beer exists, and it's a social beverage that you can enjoy after activities with your friends and your family. If you ask me, they don't need to do any of that. I know Athletic Brewing Company. Marketing doesn't matter to me of what they produce because I just know who they are. But a lot of people don't. Dry January, this is probably not the greatest topic because it's on top of mind for a lot of people, but it's a good reminder that they carry out throughout the entire year. A better example, my personal favorite, one of my top 5 breweries, Licks and Legends. They're based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Been a long time customer of theirs. Every time I go to Minneapolis, I'm at that brewery, and I sign up for their newsletter. Get it, read it every time. Also, pro tip, literally go sign up for their newsletter even if you're never going to go there, because the amount of events that they do is ridiculous, and the cool things that they come up with. Like, we're talking about all these ideas, right? Half of the ideas I execute for Garth's Brew Bar, I steal from them. Like, I know this whole thing is supposed to be about people outside of your industry, but you can still steal from people inside your industry too. But sign up for this. They do awesome stuff. I loved getting this newsletter. It was 9 facts about Lakes and Legends, just all the basics. They talked about how they're dog friendly. I knew that, but it was a great reminder. Lakes and Legends, their logo. I had forgotten what the meaning of their logo was and how they designed it. I geeked out about them. I read about it like 4 years ago. I own some of their apparel with it on it. I've had people ask me about what logo that is, and it would have been great if I were to remind them of why they chose that logo, because it's got a cool backstory. Boom, one click, I've now got that backstory. Again, this is something where I don't often like to talk about me being the target, but I was in the situation of being an avid customer and a loyal fan of theirs, that some of the basics, the one-on-one stuff, I needed to hear again. Number 4 here, they're coming up on their anniversary. 5th one, they've got a big week-long celebration that they do in the park, again, tying back to the week-long event that they do. So all these fun facts. So the to-do with this one, and I've got this whole short list of to-dos. I haven't totally been talking about them, but I've got them at the end here, is create a 5 get-to-know-us facts about your brand or brands that you're working on and send those out. I know we all do email in some capacity. Throw it on there. Use it as social content. Print it out, put it in the next packet that you give a client if that is kind of your business. But do that. You'll be amazed at the resonance that you get out of giving something that you think should only be given to people that are new to your brand, to the people that have been with your brand for quite some time. 8 here, create a flyer or editorial ad. This was awesome. I loved this experience. I pretty much do it for all clients that I work on now. I do it on my own dime because I think it's valuable to do. Dials in your messaging. So this is less of a marketing tactic and more of a messaging kind of strategy or adjustment or practice. And I'll give you a couple examples here. 49th State here did a editorial ad here of their beer, the Blonde Eagle Ale, and forced them to be concise about it. This way cooler than a sell sheet. So most breweries all just produce sell sheets. Most of them look pretty much the same. They're all Googling other breweries' sell sheets. They're having people send them sell sheets, and they're just replicating it. This I thought was super cool. They probably did put it into a magazine and used it for print in some capacity. That's why they did it. But I encourage you to not wait for a magazine ad opportunity to create something like this, because just looking at this, pretty easy to piece it together for an email campaign, social, have it printed out and framed in your establishment if that's what you're doing, because people are going to look at it and be like, that's cool. People are going to think that you ran magazine ads without ever running magazine ads. Like, that is awesome. And I see a question in the back there. Do you have your hand raised? What's up? Ooh. Yeah. Yeah. I'll repeat the question. So the question was, do you track the conversion rates or the ROI on some of these efforts, particularly the printed media? No. Whole premise here, you can. I don't. The whole premise here is to do things that might not have an ROI or might be hard to track the ROI on, and then to ask people. So in a sense, I track things and by asking for feedback on them of customers. Or I will literally hear, I'll be bartending here and some people don't know who I am behind the bar, and they'll talk about something that we've done. And I get to hear firsthand experience of somebody referring to something that we did as being really, really cool. So they're here spending money. I could have captured and been like, oh, they spent $18.65. That's a little return on my investment for my time of doing this ad. But that's not the point. I find the word of mouth is just way more valuable, and to hear it myself too. So I would encourage you to not dial and try and turn around an ROI on it, but to try and get that feedback. Because if you've got a boss that says, hey, I don't know about this, and you're like, well, I've got this idea. It might not work, but let's try it anyway. And you do it, and you go back to them and you say, hey, I just had a customer forward me this email saying how cool this was. I guarantee you, boss, they're not going to care how much that costs at that point. They're going to share that with all their other stakeholders. They'll probably print it out, or they'll probably call you into the office and ask you for more ideas. Hopefully that's the case. So you can track it. There is ways of getting ROI on print media, etc. But encourage you to focus in on the things that might not work or might not have ROI. Don't let that stop you from coming up with cool ideas like this. I realize now you probably giggled a little bit when I pulled this up because I'm riding a moose on there. That was my crazy idea. Worked with an art director friend of mine to get this shot, throw me on a moose. You probably see Marvin the Moose up there. He's kind of an icon here at Garth's Brew Bar. I could tell you the story over a beer another time, but you'll see his illustration on some of our materials. But this was our way of producing a flyer, a digital flyer, once the pandemic hit. And we were just like, we got to get our word out about Garth's Brew Bar because nobody's walking up and down the street and seeing that we're here anymore because everybody's kept up in their house and home. And we were still doing to-go sales. You see the big cooler over there. So ended up creating this and sent it to about 20-ish different apartment complexes and asked them to share it with all of their tenants. So one more way to kind of force me to be concise about what we offered, right? Like I could give you a spiel about what Garth's Brew Bar is and things that we offer all day and long. But to be able to force it into that concise of a medium was a great experience. Number 9, some of you are going to balk at this. I sometimes still balk at this. Give your team access. This is one of the largest takeaways. This is why it's in this presentation that I've seen beverage producers, distributors, retailers excel in their marketing realm because they give access to their team members. And I'll give you a few examples here. So Lake Louie, most of us are probably familiar with the brand. Lakefront, not Lake Louie. Lakefront Brewing Company out of Milwaukee. They have a My Turn series that they go through. So they have different employees of theirs go through the whole brewing process. They ideate the recipe, the idea, the label design, the style, everything about it. They bring them through that whole experience. You don't have to have brewing experience. You're not hired as a brewer to be able to participate in this. But that was the way that they internally do it. Now, if I'm a business person or I'm talking to the CFO of Lakefront, I'm thinking to myself, we're not doing this. This is not what the largest potential audience of ours wants. They're going to want this particular style at this particular time of season with this particular label based on this research, based on this statistic, based on this publication and their philosophy on things, and yada, 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 yada. They'll ultimately say no to this idea. But do it anyway because they talk, all of the employees talk and share about it. And that makes you guys think that Lakefront is even cooler than what they are because they do things like this and you talk about it. And maybe you're looking at a cooler and you have an option of this 6-pack or that 6-pack and you decide to go with Lakefront. And you might not know why. So it goes back to things that are hard to track the ROI on. You might not know why you've chose Lakefront over the other thing. But I have a strong opinion that it might be because Lakefront's cool, and you know that deep down that they're cool because they do cool things like this. So they've handed over literally all of the brewing reins over to some employee of theirs to go through the process. Another example here, Welltown out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Love their TikTok. No owners running that TikTok. No agencies running their TikTok. No dedicated social media person is running their TikTok. No event coordinators running their TikTok. They have given their TikTok access to all of their bartenders, and they produce some very awesome, funny, cool content. There's risk. I know we're all cringing at the possibility of what could happen, right? All cringing at it. But we could choose to focus on the possibility of what could happen when they do it right. And Welltown Brewing is one that is doing it right. They've created a much larger fan base. They've grown faster than other brewing companies solely because they are on TikTok and they're letting their team members control that platform. So to do here with this one, survey your employees if you got some, or your team members, and see where their passions lie, or where their customers or clients of yours, if they've got passions in spaces that you personally don't, or you're unsure of going into, hand over the reins over to them. You guys could talk compensation and all that stuff later. If they show that there's some value in it, they'll probably ask for money afterwards, but to begin with, they'll probably do it out of passion for the platform or the opportunity to do something outside of just the same old that they're hired to do. So encourage you guys to learn more about the passions, follow and study your employees' behaviors, not creepily, but of ways that might help your brand. All right, last one here, 10. Treat different people differently, right? If you're trying to be inclusive, you got to own it now. Got to own it. If you are trying to be environmentally friendly, you've got to own it and talk and interact with that audience. If you're trying to be a friendly space for LGBTQ plus folks, you've got to lean hard into that space. Gone are the days that you could just talk the talk and not walk the walk. Now you've got to do it. A couple examples here. Shiner, incredible brand. They produced these two beverages, O'Reilly, I'm totally mispronouncing it, and Agua Fresca. And that is inspired by Hispanic heritage and backgrounds in the heart of Texas. And if you break down the demographics, you're going to get all of these statistics. So it's supported in research. That's what I love about this one. It's supported in market research. It's geo-targeted, so it's focused in on reaching the right people for whom these things are going to resonate most with. So really, really smart marketing behind them. But they could have just said that they're an inclusive brand because they make an approachable Shiner Bock for anybody. They could have stopped there and just said that because it's true, right? That is inclusivity. They're not excluding anybody because they've made a very approachable liquid. But instead, they decided to lean in with the flavor profiles that are reminiscent and connected to that demographic. The label, the name, all of that stuff, they leaned heavy into it. Another example is Westside Brewing out of Cincinnati, Ohio. They created the Braille Ale, and it's a way to raise awareness of those who are blind in the community. They did have a nonprofit charitable component to it with purchases of the can. There's even a link, I believe, on the can too that gets you to, cityblind.org to learn more information. So another cool way that they leaned into being an inclusive company outside of just saying, hey, we maybe have like Braille on the restroom things. Like that's not enough anymore. That's table stakes. We need to go above and beyond. So for your to-do here is to make something special for a cultural segment of it. And it could be diversity can mean a lot of different things, right? You could go gender, you could go language, you could go disability. You could zero in on perhaps a demographic of people who have been adopted. You could zero in on people of the Subaru crowd. Oh, a special crowd there. Anybody own a Subaru? Awesome. So there's small crowds, small segments, right, that you could lean into and have more inspiring ideas and focused in on small subsets of targets. Peanut allergies is another one. So I just riffed just a bunch of examples. Again, it doesn't have to be people of color. It doesn't have to be something that is trending in the news right now. It could be a smaller set of those in your target, but to show them that you recognize that they're there and to create something specific to them that resonates, that really, really resonates with them. So your 10 to-dos. I'm going to hit them hard here real quick. Assign a budget for surprise and delight. Just do it. Make it up. I don't even care. Do it out of your own petty cash, whatever. Look at the budget at the end of the month. Did you spend it? If you didn't spend it, you got a problem because other people are spending money on surprise and delight budgets. Do it. That's your gut check for yourself. Second one, reach out to an Etsy creator. See how y'all can collaborate on something together, whether it's for your teammates. So this dials back to that Odell onesie that was made. They're not making any money on that thing, but it's really, really cool. Do it. Reach out to an Etsy provider. See how you might be able to collaborate on something. Do a little single gift for yourself. Take a photo of it. Share it on social. Give it to customers, clients, whatever. Third one, write out how your brand impacts each of the senses, or how it could if you don't have it already. Push yourself on this one. It's going to be so easy for you to think, my brand is a service and it's all online and there's no way to have a smelling experience out of it. Direct mail. There you go. You've got email addresses for all of your clients. I guarantee you do. If you don't, you probably should. Give them some direct mail. Do a scratch and sniff thing. It's hilarious. It's funny. You can find a way. That's my point. Number 4, ideate your version of a celebration around your mission, not just your product. So bring that mission, elevate it even larger. Think about how you could get more people involved with it. 5, force an in-real-life element into the next digital experience that you have. It doesn't have to be some cool, like, mobile experience that somebody does in person. It could just be, like, I don't know, if I were to do this again, maybe I would add polls into this so that you guys could submit ideas in the moment so you're interacting digitally in real life at the same time, and we get to talk about it. Might be something I'd do. Brainstorm how to get others involved in your week-long celebration. We hit on that a little bit of you got to do the legwork, come up with the ideas, pitch them to people. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. Create your own 5 get-to-know-us facts. All the basics. Rip from your About Us section of your website if you need to, and throw some pretty photos with it and send that out to your customer base. Mega damn editorial ad. Just do it. It's fun. And then train to learn your employees' passions outside your brand. Notice that to do is to absorb, to learn. I guarantee you that once you survey them and ask what passions they have outside, lights are going to go on in your brain of like, oh, you really love to do X. Let's talk about how you might be able to do that for us. And you'll just go through that ideation phase together, and they'll feel a sense of accountability and also greater affinity for your brand as well. So that's not really force things onto somebody. It's invite them in to participate with you. And then 10, make something for a cultural segment of your audience. And again, culture can mean a lot of different things. It could be just a small, very tiny subset of your audience, but do something that's unique for them. What I didn't hit on is the 98% of people that are your audience that are not the 2% that you're creating something for. They're going to look at that, and guess what? They're going to think it's cool too. So some bonus things really quickly, if you want to ask me questions on after, you can. Communicate more frequently than you are now. Just like publish a bunch of stuff. All the breweries do it. Put money behind everything you produce. If you're creating stuff and people aren't seeing it, that's an absolute waste of time and money on the investment side of making said thing. So please don't make that editorial ad and then put it in your back pocket and only show it to marketing presentations. Actually send it out and do something with it. Invest 15 minutes in interacting with people every day. That could be your team members, could be scrolling through Twitter, trying to find people talking about you so you could have your surprise and delight moments. So these are things that you could be doing that somehow tie to all these other tips of the day. And then read a magazine that's outside your industry. Magazines are not dead. Go to Barnes & Noble. It still exists. Go in the magazine section. Spend 20 minutes there. It's on the west side. Just check it out. Pick up a magazine and think with the mindset of what can I steal from this magazine for my industry. You will come up with something incredible that is going to get approved, that is going to wow your target audience, and that is going to feel original even though it is not. That's me. That's 10 takeaways plus a handful of other very fast ones. Thanks for listening. Any questions? Do we have time for questions? I got to see a mic over there.
If you have a question, I'll run over the microphone to you.
Just out of curiosity, what has been the most successful marketing campaign you've had to run the brew bar here? What's been your bigger campaign you've had that's wow, that was really successful?
It's a really good question. I would say it's probably been, I don't know if you could really call it a campaign, but it's been collaboration brewing. So a lot of breweries, they'll brew with each other and produce collaboration beers. And in Wisconsin, I can't be a brewery, despite brew being in the name of brew bar. I can't brew beer here, but I can brew beer at other places with people that have already spent $500,000 on the equipment that I don't have to, and design a label with them, throw my name on it, logo on it, go through their distribution arm as well. So there are people in the Minneapolis market right now learning about Garth's Brew Bar because my name and logo is on a beer label of a beer that they're getting out there. I would think that's probably the coolest. I think it's in its infancy still. So I'm not seeing an incredible return on that investment of people talking about, hey, I saw your beer can out shopping here and had to check you out. But I think it's going to happen once we hit breweries with greater distribution. Right now, we're hitting some of the Madison market, so we're getting a few people that haven't heard about us. But I'm looking to get some more of those tourists, people that are coming through Madison via Chicago or Minneapolis, and to check us out. So again, hard to judge the ROI on it because it's dependent on people talking to us about how they found us. But I think that's been probably the initiative we've done that has the most opportunity for a return on investment at a very low investment. That's part of it. The other part of it is that we get our team members involved with that brewing process. So kind of like the My Turn series, I bring beer tenders with me and we go through the brewing process. I've done enough beers on my own and designs and recipe creations on my own. Now I bring beer tenders with me to go do all of that. They talk about it. They tell their friends. The amount of turnover that we've had at GBB in the last year, we've lost one person and that's it. And almost everybody's coming up on like year 1 to year 2 anniversary here at GBB. So I also see value in that by doing something that's not only driving awareness for the brand of GBB, but also helping with employee retention as well. Really good question. Yeah, another one in the back. Let's go. This mug is so cool, by the way. Thank you. This is so cool.
So you have a brewery, so you have like a brick and mortar store. And with a lot of, with the COVID, the pandemic and everything, a lot of the businesses who have like an actual store close or go virtual and do the e-commerce and whatever.
Yeah.
And like, for example, for a brewery, like specifically, Ale Asylum just closed and they've been the OG, right?
Yeah.
So like how do you, like what's a marketing strategy or a tactic that would make this brewery scalable to like future-proof yourself? Just
Yeah, totally. That's a fantastic question. So essentially, how to future-proof your brand, not just brewery, amidst chaos. That's the core of the question there, right? I will go back. I don't even remember which point it was, but brands die standing still. Though I didn't survive because I existed. I survived because I was proactive with my outreach. You saw the flyer that I quickly did once the pandemic hit and emailed to all of the apartments. The number of businesses and organizations that I proactively reached out to with ideas of how we might be able to collaborate or participate in things together. It was a full-time job. Like I wasn't bartending anymore. I was ideating ways to ensure my brand was going to stay alive outside of the bar. So the tactic, the strategy there is you've got to be proactive. You've got to be sending more emails out than you're getting. That is a hard thing for a lot of breweries, especially ones that are at a larger scale, like Ale Asylum, to say, because they're all reactive. They're responding to their 100 different donation requests emails and letting that suck their time up versus carving out 15 minutes to reach out to other folks. Not saying that was the demise of Ale Asylum, but I guarantee you if they had been more proactive on ways that they can get their brand out there and more awareness around it. And this is outside of advertising, right? Like I'm not saying buy magazine ads. I'm not saying, hey, you should sponsor these TV spots. None of that. At the end of the day, it's a phone call, it's a handshake, it's an email. It's what can you do to reach more people yourself? Because that's going to resonate way better with people and they're going to support you longer. And probably there's no statistic on this, but I'm sure that if somebody saw a social ad about Garth's Brew Bar, came in and spent money versus somebody seeing that flyer that was sent to them with a note from me saying, hey, I'm Garth with Garth's Brew Bar, just a personal note. It took me 10 minutes to type it up and the flyer attached to it. I bet you they spent more money here than anybody that's seen an ad that I run. Again, I still run the ads, not downplaying that. Just you got to do the other things with it if you want to win in the long run. A few questions, yeah.
So I like the idea that you're a brew pub that celebrates other breweries around not only Wisconsin, not only the Midwest, but all over the country.
Yep.
Because a lot of times there'll be cases where like, oh, I don't really like their beer there, but I like to go to the restaurant. So you're celebrating other breweries.
Yeah.
What made you come up with that idea as a brewery?
Yeah, that ties. So, kind of what inspired the mission of ours to help breweries thrive. It really goes back to journalism background. I got tired of writing about breweries to people that already know about it and may already like it. So I wanted to do something that could bring new people into the line of sight of a new brewery. So it was basically traveling. If you want the more creative story, it's basically traveling through Budapest. Went to a craft beer bar called Hops and fell in love with it. The dude there was one guy, owner of the place, spoke poor English, but was super excited to talk to me anyway, and talked about the breweries and the beers that he had on tap. And he had a list of like 140 different beers, and he could talk about any of them, and not just like, yeah, this is an amber or this is a stout. Like, he knows about the brewery or the owner of it or the brewmaster of it and could talk about it. So that was just inspiring. That's where the idea for it clicked. I knew I wanted to help breweries thrive beyond just writing about them, but the idea of how to do that clicked when I was in Hops and in Budapest. So ever since then, yeah, it's been just how can we help breweries thrive? It's very, I mean, not to pat myself on the back, but it's like an unselfish reason we exist. And one of the reasons why I think that our business is successful and is trajectory speaking. I mean, we made it through a pandemic, so that's pretty damn good. So I've got like a safe bet that we'll be fine in the long run. I'm mindful that other things could happen, but feel good about it because we're based in that kind of that mission of helping breweries thrive, very kind of selfless initiative of ours. Yeah. How are we on? Do we have a time check? We're good on a couple of questions. Okay, so we'll do one more after you. Is cool? Go for it. Go for it.
Yeah. So as a representative of a local brewery, Untitled Art, and someone new to marketing and digital marketing, we're kind of seeing the mercurial nature of social media, new ownership of platforms, the way that everything is becoming algorithmically served to you. Every fourth post is an ad or a suggested post from someone who you don't follow. We're considering, we're seeing the reach of our posts from a year ago cut in half. And thinking about pivoting to more old-fashioned direct mail. We have a mailing list of 10 to 15,000 email addresses from our online business.
Totally.
And leveraging direct mailing, SMS marketing, more that email marketing to the customer base that we know we have that purchases from us versus just spewing, social media dollars out there and hoping to get 1% of what, you put out there. What are your thoughts on that and your experience with that?
Yeah.
Pivoting maybe to older fashioned marketing strategies.
Do it now.
Yeah.
The best time to have done it was a couple of years ago. Next best time is right now because you are not the only brand that is thinking to themselves, shit, everything costs a lot of money to promote stuff on social. It's otherwise going unseen by all of our fan base. Then on top of that, it's hard to even argue for more of an ad spend on social because you're talking to people that think of social still like it's 2010 and not like it's 2023, and that organic reach is for the most part dead and you need paid support behind anything if you want people to see it. That's a hard sell to some folks, and you could make that sell and you could get funds and be smarter about the way that you promote that content to both your customer base of folks who know you to kind of amplify that loyalty and those outside to learn about you. You can do that. If you can do that on top of the other stuff, even better. But hands down, lean into all those traditional methods. I would say email is not dead yet. That is still, so from like a newsletter subscription standpoint, if you could put a little bit more energy into that, if you're thinking of how can we stay in the digital side of things, if you're going to run ads on social, run ads on social to get people to subscribe to your newsletter. You're going to get better engagement rates off of that than you would just putting money behind social content of the stuff that you'd be putting on the newsletter, if that makes sense. But outside of that, yeah, man, get into some direct mail, do some things that are different than other folks are doing in the digital landscape, And if you want to level it up even more, figure out how to integrate the two. So if you're running a social campaign, how do you incorporate direct mail and to get people to participate in that element as well? So to try and bridge those two things together, that's where it really resonates even better. But some people don't always have the money for that. So if you had to pick and choose, if you're gun to my head forcing me, lean into some more of those direct mail or in-person components of it. And probably honestly, like, take note out of some of the things here. If you've got $10,000 to put towards media spend on social for a month, pitch the idea of running a week-long event where you're paying other businesses to participate in that experience and try to focus in on there. I'll throw one other tidbit out there is I'm also seeing a greater an increase in companies coming together to get ads for their industry or their space. So less of a competition. You'll see this more in the brewing industry than anywhere else, in my opinion, of people working together on things. But just a brief example, Monroe Street, I could run an ad about my bar. Orange Tree Imports could run an ad about Orange Tree Imports, maybe sell some products. We could all do that. Orange Tree, me, and let's just say, I don't know, ice cream chocolate shop down the street. If we all throw in $100 and run a single ad about how incredible Monroe Street is, and maybe our businesses are in the photo, but we talk about the street itself, that is going to reach way more people with way less work and way less financial investment on my specific end to participate in that. So I'd encourage you to think of how can you get other people to work together with you to combat the loss of organic reach on social. If you're fighting for spend, that's kind of one opportunity to solve for it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool. We got one more question. Who's in the back? Do you have a question? Okay. I'll answer it differently. You could ask it again.
Well, can you talk about social media ads and what are you guys doing on the social media at all?
All right. So tip number one, I don't post anything without putting money behind it. Just hands down, if there's anything you see on Facebook of Garth's Brew Bar, I've got at least $10, something, anything. Because again, I talked about an ROI of your time. If you're spending time on anything, you want a return on it. It kills me when brands post stuff or do really cool things and nobody sees it. And then they move on with their lives and they say, hey, that thing didn't work. And we shouldn't do that anymore. When the reality is there's just not enough people that saw that thing. Otherwise, it probably would have worked. So that is kind of my step number one. If you're posting anything on social, figure out a way to get money behind it. There's masterminds out there that know how to work the advertising side with targeting and list creating and custom targets and custom audiences and all that. That could be so that's its own presentation and deep dive. Do those things. It's not as simple as throwing $15 at something if you want it to work. It's not that simple. But at minimum, you need to lean in there and not waste your energy creating stuff that nobody sees. There are the exception to that rule is emerging platforms. By design, or emerging elements of an existing platform, by design, they want the most people to be using that the fastest. So when Reels came about, you didn't need to spend a dime on Reels. Facebook, Instagram was promoting that so strongly and giving much more weight to that in news feeds so that people experienced it more, so more people got on, got engaged, got addicted, spent more time on it, so then they could turn the advertising volume up on it and start charging you money for it because they've got data to show that people are on it using it. So when something new is emerging, it's the scariest time to leap in, but it's going to be the cheapest time to leap in because they probably don't even have an advertising platform for it set up yet. So that's kind of an easy way to win the sometimes organic ability on social. So if you're producing stuff, put money behind it. If you really don't want to put money behind something, go into whatever space is new and doesn't have too many people on it or advertising opportunities on it yet. And maybe even ask employees or team members of yours to participate in said activity and get that organic reach for even more free. Cool. Awesome questions. Garth at garthsbrewbar.com is my email if you want to email me if you have any other questions about marketing or if you want to share any ideas for what GBB could be doing or if you want to collaborate with a client of yours or a brand of yours. Seriously, I pretty much respond within 48 hours for sure. Most of the time, 15 minutes, but hate to promise that. And then 20 minutes go by and you're like, Garth said he responds in 15 minutes. So seriously, kick me all the ideas. I'd love to hear it. And if you do something that you're like, oh, I learned this from Garth, tweet at me or something. Let me know. And then I'll include it in the future presentation I do of this. So thanks for you guys' time. Appreciate it, y'all.